The tipping point comes between the second and third generation, passing that down successfully to the next, what I call, not next generation, but the rising generation. So having it be able to evolve. So it really doesn't matter, if it's a African business, it's an Asian business, it's whatever, right? We don't have that longevity here in East Africa, so we are now getting to what I think is the perfect storm. So we're now starting to see businesses that have made it into the second generation, and now their third generation is coming in, and it has to change. So how we went about siblings working in business together is not how it works with cousins working in business together.
Yeah, they say never work with family, huh?
Yeah.
Or you work with family the right way, right?
Yeah.
So it's really kind of understanding, how does family need to work together, right? Everybody can't be the boss. We can't be fair, right, and equal. When you're in your first generation, you pass things down to the second generation. As a parent, I have 5 children. So I love all of my children. I want to give them each the same, amount of juice to drink, right? And so the founders give each child the same amount of money in the family business. They say, okay, you're all working in the family business and you're all going to make X amount of money, and it's all the same, regardless of one does this or one does nothing, right? Well, that builds this resentment of, wait a second, my brother's getting the same money as I'm getting, and I'm working twice as hard. Well, that starts breeding this resentment, and the resentment builds and creates fractures. Right? So when you get from the second generation to the third generation, now those grandchildren are coming in, the model doesn't work anymore. We have to compensate based on fair and equitable, not fair and equal. Nothing's equal in life.
Equitable.
That's right. Mahesh, how did this help you? Because, you come from a big family.
In identifying a business and a hustle.
Guy.
Hustle.
Because many people run their businesses like a hustle. They don't understand business process. They don't understand systems and structures that need to be put in. You find that a lot, and especially if we look at the current economic situation, a lot are sinking in heavy debt that's not defining or identifying where this business is going, and bringing in the professional help. Now, we know our customs and our culture. We don't bring in outsiders, so the professional help suffers. You're looking for expertise within yourselves and finding that it's not really there, and you need to go outside. But the question is, how do you make that leap to do that? There's trust issues, right, that people have to deal with. And then that whole thing that Jean brought in, the resentment. So in terms of identifying, what are your personality types? What are you within a family? And what roles is this person going to play? And then there's the issue of favoritism. There are those families that don't have the opportunity to transition from their from themselves to their children. Luckily, or fortunately, this is now a situation where we're looking at how do we move now from this, and who will be involved, and what work will they do. So managing those types of relationships, the family dynamics, so that you move from, oh, you're the favorite, oh, having to understand that particular, the family dynamics and the relationships, and then moving on from that step to, okay, what are we going to do with this? Because most families just, say, forget it, I'm going to go out and create my own, and leave an existing institution, all because you don't want to deal with the conflict and those family dynamic relationships. So talking to each other, how to do that, ensuring that there's the person who is passing that on, it makes a strong enough statement and expresses themselves so that there's no confusion. There's no, you can't give, as Dr. Jean said, it's not about equity. There's those relationships, but how much work are you putting in?
So
Right.
you're forcing a firstborn son
To get into business.
and yet
he wants to be an artist.
you're getting it.
So I think there's a difference. You have to look at each next generation and each of your rising generations and say, who really wants to be in business? So if I love all my 5 children equally, because they've, I love them all equally. Now maybe one of them has misbehaved and I don't love them, so maybe I'm going to axe them out, but hopefully not. I'm going to share what I have with all of them equally. Okay. Now when they work in the business, okay, I'm going to reward them based on their job, their job. So if I have one child working in the business, they're going to get a market compensation. They're going to get a performance review. They're going to get money based on that, right? And if I'm splitting up my family business between them for the future, they might get a portion of that just like their other siblings. So I think we have to start looking at things that break the difference between ownership and what you're doing in the business, so that it allows those siblings that say, you know what, the business isn't for me. And that's okay. The other thing that I think is really important to understand is we need to evolve from family business, okay, to an enterprising family. In an enterprising family, many times by the 4th generation, we don't have any family members that work in the business. They own the business, and the business is professionally run. And they're earning because their value of their businesses are going up. They're getting distributions, they're great owners, but they don't have to be working in the business. And that's a big difference.
I tell you what, Doc, one community we found who really gets into this, involved generation after generation, is Indians. Asians. They're really good at this.
And they pass on the baton.
But they are coached from way back. From the beginning, they are coached. You're the one who's going to take over. You're the one who's going to do this. They are coached from way back.
Yeah.
And it's seamless.
Yeah.
Correct.
Well, I disagree. I don't think it's seamless. We've worked with many different cultures in many different parts of the world, and it isn't seamless. It's never seamless because as a parent, I might say that is the person that's going to take it over, but maybe if that's not the person, so that expectation is so great, right? And so they're really disenfranchised about it. So again, I think that every culture has a challenge with this. How do you evolve it is a challenge. It looks seamless till you get in behind the scenes, and then it isn't as seamless. And I think that's the challenge we have in family-owned enterprises, because you're seen as an image in the business community.
What Dr. Jean does, she has an extensive questionnaire that you fill out. And those tools are what allow her to be able to assess what is your personality type for each member of the family, so that you're able to understand how do we interact with each other. We're able to now get the tools that we require, or the language that we require. There are those who have one language, kwenda kabisa, shindwe, as opposed to having the vocabulary to express now, what is this, how am I feeling, and why do I think that I'm losing control? So that training and that program that Dr. Jean has is, I can say, the core part of how are we able to move now from this conflict to start understanding, so that we let go of the tiny wars that destroy that whole goose. And now we're able to move on and say, okay, fine. I may not be the best manager, but I understand where the business is going. And I will not kill the vision. I will not put my self-interest ahead of the business, because this is what feeds me. Just bringing our egos down so that we can now see the trees for the forest, and that, I think, has been the key area of assistance and help that has allowed ourselves and those that she has trained to start focusing on, okay, this is where we are going. It's not about the internal family fights. It's about the business. Where is it going to go, and what is in the best interest for this institution?
So what we really do is we look and we help identify where is that family-owned business or enterprise in the evolution of a family-owned business.
So let's say it's a family dairy.
Yes.
Let's say.
Okay, so if it's a family
And
dairy,
there's 8 siblings.
and there's 8 siblings, so again, we want to look at where is the family in its transition. So where is the patriarch or matriarch who started it, that
They're
entrepreneur?
dead.
So if they're dead at that point, that's, and we have the 8 siblings. Now, how many in the rising generation, how many cousins, how many children do they have?
No, let's talk
Right.
about the 8, because the 8 are feuding.
Yeah.
Right? The 8 are feuding.
Yeah. So again, every feud has a different perspective. So every eight family member, each sibling has their own perspective on what's created that feud.
Yep.
So the first thing we do is we really spend time and we talk to each one and we gain their perspective. Because I can see, look, you're wearing an orange shirt and I can say that's orange, but we have different orange, right? And then if it was my husband, he'd say that's not orange, that's red, right? So no offense, husband of mine, but
Dr. Coke is making faces at you.
But again, we see through our own filters and our own lens. So our job at Positively People, our job is to help identify and spend time with each of the 8 siblings and look at the perspective that you have through an unbiased lens. Find the commonality and find the differences in perspectives.
And if they're not listening,
If they're not listening, then we get even deeper. Why are they not listening? So there's something behind that, right? So we look back as what is creating that experience of how you're viewing something. And that'll go way back in time. Many of these disconnections are this misunderstanding really go back to childhood. Dad liked you more than he liked me, Jeff. Right? You picked on me when I was a child, right? And I go back to that we have inner critic voices, and these we should have tamed as we matured into adulthood, and many of us don't tame them. Some of the inner critic voices is, I'm not lovable. I'm not appreciated. I'm not good enough, right? I'm not perfect. Those are what I call the 4 biggies, right? And those start early. We're born with them. They start early. So if I grew up and my father or mother didn't really appreciate me, right? I'm looking for that appreciation. So therefore, I want to be the powerful one. I want people to say, hey, I'm adored. You did a great job. I want that because I didn't get that when I was growing up. So I need that. Or you were always put down as a child, right? You didn't do that right. You were criticized all the time. Your sibling did better than you on that exam. So you grew up with this voice in your mind is trying to be, I'm good, not good enough. I'm not good enough. So you're constantly looking for, I'm good enough, right? And so these voices feed across these siblings. And we are starting to war based on something that we don't even know is really settled in our subconscious. And that's what we need to get to. We need to unpack that. We need to work on that.
Yep.
And then the other stuff can fall into place. The other stuff is really putting in form and function and policies and processes that help us sustain and be a fantastic family enterprise. But it's this underbelly. It's this underbelly that we need to bring up. It's like peeling back an onion. You have it like a sweet, nice onion, and it doesn't smell so bad on the surface. The more you peel it back, it gets rather smelly, right? But we really have to get through the smelly, right, in order to now rebuild. And we can do that. And it's hard work. But again, it's your legacy at stake. It's your wealth at stake, right? Do you want to be tied up in court for 10, 20, 30, 40 years?
40 years.
Yeah.
40
Yeah.
years.
40 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're sitting in court fighting over what? And everything's gone. And who really has your wealth now?
The lawyers.
Okay, for all the lawyers that are listening, I did not say that. I did not say that. That was not from my mouth.
Jen,
You didn't have to.
Jen, must all family-owned businesses survive beyond the lifetime of the founders? Do we or are we alive to the fact that there are businesses that are mooted to just serve a purpose during the lifetime
Yeah.
of the founders? Must we have legacy?
No.
Like, if I found a business and it flourishes during my lifetime, is that good enough, or must I hand it over to my children?
No, but I think it has to be, you have to be able to have that choice, not have it done to you. You need to make that choice. And so when I work and say, okay, we have, every generation is going to exit. The question is, how are you going to exit? So as an owner of a business, right, I might choose to say, look, I just want a lifestyle business. I've started this great retail boutique. I'm selling all of these things. It's fabulous. I'm living a great life. You know, I want it to just be in my lifetime. That's it. And then at the end of the day, I'm going to make a choice. I'm going to either, hey, let it go under. Okay, I had a great run. You know, that's great. I'm going to sell it to somebody that wants a small shop. Great. And I'm going to retire and I'm going to enjoy life. But that, I chose to do that. So we call that a lifestyle business. And it's just a single generational business. That's it. You made that choice. Right? The second one is you're going to say, you know what? I love this business, but I want to position it to sell. And I'm hearing this in many businesses here is, how do I get more capital? How do I position myself to sell? How do I bring in private equity? And then I go off on a tangent on private equity because we were kind of with private equity in different parts of the world, and private equity doesn't want to come in and have your problems. So private equity is going to bring in somebody like our firm, and they're going to say, hey, you know, we're going to do our due diligence on the financial legal issue, but we want you to do the due diligence on the family issue. Because we know that if we put money into that business and buy a portion of that business and there are family challenges, then it's going to hinder our opportunity to take it to the next level fast. And private equity wants to come in and they want to get out. They want to make money. And they can't make money if they're coming into your friction and your family squabbles. And so they bring in somebody like us or colleagues like mine in different parts of the world, and they'll do an evaluation and they'll say, oh no, there's these squabbles, this. We'll look at the underbelly. And every time we put a check mark in there and say, okay, that's a problem, the value they're going to offer you is going to go down. Because they have to clean up your mess for you.
Yeah, you know, Kenny Rogers has a great line in one of his songs when we play here once in a while. He say, "You've got to know when to hold them, know
That's right. That's right.
know
Exactly.
when to walk away,
Yeah.
know when to run."
Absolutely.
Should the matriarch or the patriarch, should they know when it is time to hand over before they die? You know, because they fall sick and die.
So that's the problem. So this is the problem. We have to change the language. We don't use the word succession planning. Okay? Succession means you're out, I'm in. Right? If I'm going to secede something, right, like we do in government, stuff like that, I hand you the baton and now I'm out the door. Well, that doesn't work. If I've been a matriarch and I've built this business and I've got my heart and soul in it and I get my relevance from this, now you're going to take all that away. What am I going to do with my life? I've dedicated. So we use the word continuity because continuity means it's a continuous evolution. So that patriarch or matriarch, those that were at the helm, we have to find their next chapter of relevance. And so you're not shoving somebody out and saying, now, young man, you're in at the helm because you were waiting and now we're pushing dad out. We're not doing that, right? When we use that language, why would anybody want to hand over the baton? Why, to be kicked out the door? No.
Put out to farm.
Put out to pasture? No. You know, we're not a cow going out to pasture, right? We need to say, what's your next relevance? Where do you have your next great journey? And then we have transition, we have continuity, we have place and purpose for them, and we're working together in synergy. So again, don't use the word succession planning. You know, those that create it, regardless of what generation, put their heart and soul in it. You don't kick them out, right?
Yeah.
You bring them forward. That's the difference.
How do people get in touch with you?
How do people get in touch? 0722 408 777. So
0722
408
777.
yes, we're there for you. Absolutely love to have a conversation on this. We're passionate about it.
Where are you located?
We are located in Runda, here in Nairobi. We have a wonderful place called The Haven, which is a special place for families to have confidential, private conversations.
And your company is known as
Positively People.
Positively
Positively
People,
People.
meaning
We are positive about your future. We want to get to the positive. We want to leave the baggage behind and help you walk forward.
And are you able to do that? Are there some fights there in Runda when families come and stuff?
Yeah, but nobody knows about it because we're on a big property and it's quiet and nobody sees you coming and going like at the Muthaga Club or in a hotel. Yeah.
MCC.
Yeah. So yeah, we don't allow you to publicly fight. You can fight all you want, and if it gets a little heated, somebody's going in the swimming pool.
Oh, nice.
Get in touch. These are difficult questions and difficult topics, but they're important, and these are discussions that we need to have. We need to start planning for our next generation. We need to find out what they want. I fall into a very interesting generation where there's still that expectations that parents have that you leave what I gave birth to you leave what you're doing, come here and help me do my work. And it's important that we start having those type of conversations. You know, my children are not paying no black tax. They don't have time for that. You know, they're like, no, that's your business, not mine, not my babe, not my monkey. I'm not carrying it. So, you know, and here we are. You know, we are the ones we are taking care of an elderly generation and moving on. So there is that group in Kenya that is within that mix, you know, because you were married into this family, then you automatically must comply.
Yeah.
It's the law.
Take the cue.
You know, the voices.
Yes.
However, when we look at, we are entrepreneurial people. As a country, you look at the things that people do, they know that they must make business or get things to work, but move from being a hustle and turn into a business and get the skills that will help you be able to move on. I used to think that I had to follow through with the family businesses. My mom was a teacher. She started a school, and that continues. But I have a passion. We need to build that business for our family. You understand? My family, not the bigger family, our family, husband, wife, and our children. So it's important to be able to draw those boundaries. It's important to be able to have the language to speak up so that we're able to move on. And it's important to recognize talent where it is and bring it in so that you're able to move on. As they say in Swahili, one finger does not kill.
Say it in Swahili, say it. Say it, and then Jeff will finish. Say half of it, and
Kidole
then
moja.
Kidole moja, haiwi sawa.
And we need to be able to learn to respect each other within this whole conversation and understand what is the bigger picture. Life is bigger than myself, and I think if we were also brought that into the political situation, we'd have a better country, because it's not about us. We have only been gifted this nation for the next generation.
amazing.
Yeah.